Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. My friends, my family, we are so close to New York Giants football. And I know some people, some analysts have a lot of garbage to say about the Giants, but we aren't taking it. We are not here for that type of negativity. We want to spread some positivity today. Get excited about this team. I know the offensive line has a couple of question marks. We're going to talk about the unofficial depth chart, which lists a surprising player at right tackle. And, we're going to break that down a little bit, talk about the captains. We're going to talk about, a couple other things. Outside linebackers, we're going to talk about Andrew Thomas and what Joe Judge said about him. There's a lot to go over. I mean, this is game week, my friends. We are ready. We are in it. We are so close to seeing some real live action football where it matters the most. On the football field, it's going to count. This is week 1 against the Denver Broncos. We're going to be breaking things down all week long to get you guys prepared and ready for this game. But Anthony, before we jump into everything that we have to talk about, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing real good, man. 5 days away from kickoff. I can't wait. New York Giants, Denver Broncos, 4:25 p.m. You know we're going to be live streaming pregame. You know we're going to have instant analysis postgame, plus the highlights. I can't wait. It's going to be an exciting week ramping up to that. We're going to be keeping a close eye on this unofficial depth chart, on the injury report, and on this week of practices, especially on Wednesday's practice, padded practice. Let's see how Saquon Barkley does, and let's see how much we see him on Sunday. It's going to be really exciting, guys. I know this is like what we've all been building up towards. This anticipation is finally going to culminate in the week 1 matchup versus the Broncos. I'm super hyped, so let's get into it, Alex.
Absolutely, my friend. And let's start off with the captains here because, these captains worked really hard this offseason to get into shape, really get this team molded and growing together. And I know, some guys coming out of the woodwork, some former players and this and that saying the Giants are going to be a cakewalk for Denver. They clearly don't remember that our defense is a top 10, if not top 5 unit. And our offense has a ton of new weapons, none of which have featured during the preseason. So we don't really know what this team is going to look like. Is the playbook going to be vastly different than what they showed during preseason? How is the defense going to look? We're going to talk about Patrick Graham a little bit. The Giants YouTube channel released an awesome little documentary about Patrick Graham, his background, and, just how great of a person and human he is and how freaking smart that guy is. Patrick Graham is one of the smartest guys on this coaching staff, and I believe he's got this team really locked up. There's a reason he was a head coaching candidate, and a lot of teams were going after him last year, and the Giants said, no, we're going to actually give you more money. We're going to pay you like a head coach. We want you here. It's his dream job. He's working with Joe Judge. And these captains, a lot of them are on defense. You got Logan Ryan, who I believe is really the leader of this team. He is the leader of that defense, but he's also very much in coordination with that offense. He said he's going to be hitting on Daniel Jones this week to try and gauge the calls and the verbiage that Denver uses because, Pat Shurmur is their offensive coordinator. So he's going to be using Daniel Jones as kind of a springboard to try and help him decipher what's going on the field. Of course, you have Daniel Jones actually as a captain, which makes sense. He's the quarterback. Leader of that offense. Saquon Barkley, one of the most positive and joyful people to be around on that offense. Of course, he's been injured, rehabilitating from that knee injury, but he's a big name. Of course, you need him as that primary guy. He's a leader on that offense and someone that brings a lot of energy to this team. Then you have Nick Gates, the only person on this team and one of the only people in the NFL that is capable and has the balls to stand up to Aaron Donald. He got into a fight with him, I think maybe it was 2 years ago or last year, and it was, Aaron Donald, that guy is one huge muscle, right? He's like a human bicep. And Nick Gates has the balls to go and actually stand up to him and fight with him. That just blows my mind. You have Blake Martinez, who I think is the leader of that defense in conjunction with Logan Ryan. He's the Mike linebacker. He communicates everything. He's one of our best players, of course. He is a necessity. That's what Joe Judge called him, a necessity, not a want, but a need. I think he really is one of those guys that, is indispensable on this defense at this point in time. Jabril Peppers, who I like to call the Energizer Bunny, he's a guy that just brings so much energy to this unit, and you really have to love a guy like Jabril Peppers. The Giants preferably don't like to let, captains walk. They let Dalvin Tomlinson walk. Jabril Peppers finally taking that jump to captaincy, and I think he's going to make every single snap count this year. He's going to be an absolute menace as that kind of safety linebacker hybrid that they're trying to use him in. Of course, you have Graham Gano, our fearless kicker, who did not miss many kicks last year, and he was very consistent. Guy on special teams, a couple guys on defense, and a couple guys on offense, Anthony. I think a pretty solid group of players here. What are you thinking about the captains that the Giants named this season?
Yeah, I mean, Saquon, this is his third year in a row as a captain. I think that's awesome for him. Well deserved, especially the way that he's fought through this injury, just showing that he is a fearless leader who wants to give everything that he can to the sport to get back to top tier shape for the Giants. Of course, you also have Daniel Jones out there, second year as a captain. I think that's awesome for him. He is establishing himself as the franchise quarterback. But Nick Gates, the new offensive captain, I love that choice. I think he's fully deserving of that. Nick Gates being that super versatile offensive lineman that's done so much for this team and goes to bat for every single player. Anytime there's a fight on the field, Nick Gates is usually involved defending his teammates. I love that about him. That's what you want in a captain. That's what you want in your leader offensively. And one other thing that I want to throw out there is Daniel Jones going up into this game, probably giving some insight to Patrick Graham on the Pat Shurmur offense. Keep in mind, this is a Pat Shurmur revenge game, right? Offensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos, former head coach of the Giants, coached Daniel Jones in his rookie season. I think that's a pretty underrated storyline that we should keep an eye on. I think Daniel Jones is definitely helping Patrick Graham get a little bit of insight into that or offensive scheme rather, and hopefully going to help this defense kind of shut down the Denver Broncos offense. Not that that should be too difficult of a task considering what we have defensively and what they have offensively. Hope I don't have to eat my words on that one, but I think that's a really underrated storyline. We're all pretty familiar with the Pat Shurmur offense. Some of you probably enjoy it more than the Jason Garrett offense. I didn't enjoy it very much, but I probably do enjoy it more than the Jason Garrett offense. So we'll see how that goes in week one, which offensive coordinator does a better job. And then, of course, the defensive captains. I mean, Logan Ryan, fully deserving, is like the leader of the team, arguably. He's always like the most vocal person, the number one advocate for the team. He's just done a phenomenal job and really bought into the culture ever since he got here late last offseason, right before the season began. Blake Martinez, fully deserving, captain of the defense, quarterback of the defense. And then Jabril Peppers, as Alex mentioned, always bringing that Jabril Peppers energy that we love to see and really energizing this team and giving them that extra spark that they need going into Sundays. And Graham Gano, longtime veteran in this league, missed one field goal last year. Phenomenal player, phenomenal teammate, phenomenal man. All these guys are super deserving. No one else that I think was better selected for these positions as captains. And I'm really excited to see these guys in particular have some excellent seasons and help boost this team into the playoffs, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think, having specific captains, it really elevates those specific guys. They want to live up to that captaincy. So I think they pick some really solid players who really need to be those leaders, who need to step up, who need to have good seasons. Specifically, Daniel Jones. He's the one guy. He needs to step up. He needs to be vocal. He needs to lead this team. He needs to be charismatic. And I think he's not really the charismatic type of guy, but at the end of the day, they need someone like that. They need him to be energetic, lively, celebrate when they do something good, really, give that offense energy. I think Saquon Barkley usually is that guy, but the thing is he hasn't been on the field the last 2 years, so, you need someone to balance it out. Sterling Shepard, who I thought that was actually going to get a captaincy nod, didn't this time around, but I think he's just as much a leader as anybody on that list. But let's take a look at the unofficial depth chart, right? So the Giants released this today. There's a couple surprises, pretty much, what you'd expect across the board. But the one big one, right tackle, they have Nate Solder listed over Matt Peart, which it is unofficial. So we're not sure if Matt Peart will start on Sunday against Denver. But for the most part, it looks like Nate Solder will get the first chance. It could be more of a rotation, but the starter will likely be Nate Solder if I had to guess. And a lot of people might say, Matt Peart, he's young. We want to get him reps in there, but it's not about him, right? It's not about Matt Peart and his development. It's about protecting Daniel Jones with a guy that's way more experienced than Matt Peart. At the end of the day, who are you going to trust? A guy who's has half a season of experience at the most. Matt Peart ended up missing a lot of time due to COVID last year. And of course you had Cam Fleming there as well, but Nate Solder, way more experience. He'll adjust faster. He's faced off against some of these really great pass rushers in the NFL. I think you're safer going with Nate Solder in week one. I know, Anthony, you love Matt Peart. You want him to be that developmental guy that really comes in and holds down that right tackle spot. But it's about Daniel Jones. It's about trusting the guy who's really going to give you the best performance. I think that just is Nate Solder right now, Anthony. You might disagree with me, but I think you just got to think about your quarterback in this scenario.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was hoping Matt Peart would take the step forward this offseason. I think he would have, but that back injury really held him back, really stunted his growth and development. Super unfortunate, but hopefully in the long run, he can start to ramp up, get healthier, and become a better player. But probably week one versus Von Miller and the Denver Broncos defense, probably best to go with the veteran and not the young guy coming off of an injury. Let's go with the veteran who's been in the league for a decade, Nate Solder. I kind of enjoy this move. I kind of support this move, even though I really want to see Matt Parrott succeed. Listen, man, he was struggling in the preseason, and we can't have him struggling in week one. Week one sets the tone for your year, and we need to have a good week one, set a good tone for this team, and definitely try and lock down Von Miller. You can't really stop Von Miller. You can just hope to
Yeah,
contain
good
him and slow him
good
down,
try.
right? You can hope to contain him, and hopefully Nate Solder can contain him to some extent. But we've discussed this quite a bit on this podcast as well. Maybe in week two, you see an offensive line change, right? As they kind of configure this offensive line in some different ways, see what works best in the long run. Maybe week two, if Shane Lemieux starts in week one, maybe they give him some rest 3 days later in the Thursday night game, right? It's so close together that maybe they can go with a couple different players, kind of rest some guys up, and then evaluate after the first 2 weeks what they want to do for the rest of the year. Joe Judge has said that the first few weeks of the season are kind of like a preseason still. So I think that's really reasonable to expect that they make some changes from week one to week two, considering the short week. Give some guys a rest, give some guys a chance to stand out. And then after that, go through those 2 weeks of film and then kind of make your decision for the rest of the year. I think that's something we can definitely see the Giants doing. But week one, if we are seeing Nate Solder, it's probably the right move. I wish that Matt Parrott was ready for this, but I just don't think he is yet. Maybe he just needs a few more weeks or maybe one more season, and then hopefully he'll be ready to take over a starting position. I really thought that he was close, and he looked pretty close early on in camp. Just think that injury is catching up with him. I don't, back injuries, man, they're so hard to recover from, and they never really go away, which is my biggest concern with Matt Parrott in the long run. So hopefully he can heal up and get onto the field because I think that he's got the highest ceiling of any of these offensive linemen. I mean, you see the way he's built. His arms are just freakishly long. He's got great feet, super quick. So hopefully he can kind of recover from that injury fully. If he isn't fully recovered, we haven't really gotten too many details on that. And maybe he can bounce back in the future and take that starting position over. But for week one versus Von Miller, I think we should go with Nate Solder.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. They're going to be testing out different combinations, right? This position battle does not end here. This is not the end all be all, the right tackle spot. Matt Perk could totally end up being a great player, just needs the live action, just needs the live reps. And the other interesting one is left guard, right? You have Shane Lemieux and Ben Bredesen really, fighting it out here to try and figure out who's that starting left guard for the future. Now, we all know that Shane Lemieux was not a great player when he had 2 legs. Now he has one leg, one bad knee. We're going to see how he fares. I think he's going to get the start in week one against Denver, but it's entirely possible that the Giants are like, you know what? Let's just put Bredesen in. He's not looking so good. The reality is Bredesen is just not really caught up with the playbook yet. He does not have the chemistry with Andrew Thomas, does not have the chemistry with Nick Gates, with Daniel Jones, doesn't know the protection calls, at least all of them. He's really getting a crash course right now and trying to figure out how he can be best utilized in just a week. He really is only going to be on the team for a week and a half. It took a couple of weeks for Isaac Yiadom. Like, think about this. Last year, the Giants traded for Isaac Yiadom, and he didn't really make an appearance until 3-4 weeks in. They had Corey Ballantyne, then they had Ryan Lewis, and then Isaac Yiadom started to really get going. So I think it takes a little bit of time for these guys to learn the scheme. I think the offense might be a little bit easier than being a secondary piece in Patrick Graham's defense, which is like Egyptian hieroglyphics compared to Jason Garrett's, school book with watercolors. So it's a little bit different. I think Ben Bredesen will get it a lot faster. He has Kevin Zeitler over in Baltimore that was helping him transition a little bit better. But I will say that I think Bredesen and that offensive line in Baltimore, they churn out good offensive linemen. So the Giants went out, they said, okay, that's probably one of the better units in the league. He's obviously learning from some great coaches. Let's go steal one of those guys. They went out, got a pretty solid one. I think that, that was a tremendous steal. They got Ben Bredesen, a 5th round and 7th round pick for a 4th round selection, which was Bredesen's selection 2 years ago. So rather last year out of Michigan. I think that he will probably end up being the starter within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I don't think it'll be week one. Maybe he'll get some drives just to get his feet wet with the scheme. But it's probably going to be Major League Shane Lemieux, and I think that's why they have him listed ahead of him on the unofficial depth chart. Anthony, are you kind of on the same boat as I am? I think Bredesen might not get a lot of action in week one, but moving forward, he could steal that job pretty easily. He just has to really show more than Lemieux, which isn't that hard to do at this point.
Yeah, like I said, man, with Lemieux playing on a partially torn patellar tendon, think about how scary that is. He makes one bad move and he tears that patellar completely. He's done for at least a year, like a full calendar year, and then some change probably. So Lemieux needs to be extremely careful. I assume he's probably going to have some surgery at the end of the year to kind of correct this and heal this up. But for now, he's just going to have to play on this and hope that he doesn't re injure himself. So when we have a short week like we do this week, upcoming with the Thursday night game in week 2, I think it's very reasonable to assume that Shane Lemieux starts in week 1 because he does know the playbook and he has been around longer and he has some chemistry more than Brett Bredesen does. But in week 2, maybe give Shane Lemieux some rest and have Ben Bredesen go out there in week 2. I think that's like a really good strategy, especially as the Giants kind of work this as a preseason, as I mentioned, and just configure this offensive line for the long run. Let's kind of do a test trial week 1, test trial week 2. Then week 3 and forward, let's decide and finalize what we want this offensive line to look like. That's why this depth chart is unofficial. Week 3 should be completely official, and that's where we go from. So I do think Shane Lemieux gets the start in week 1 if he's healthy enough to play, but keep an eye on Ben Bredesen in week 2.
I mean, he should be the primary guy there, and for the most part, that's what I'm expecting. Now, over to the defensive side, outside linebacker, they have O'Shane Eximon is listed over Azeez Ojulari. Now, I don't really consider that too much, because the outside linebacker is going to be more of a rotation. I don't think you can really say anyone's going to be a starter except for Lorenzo Carter. He's the only one on that line I'm saying is going to be on the field for the majority of snaps, right? I think, Azeez Ojulari, O'Shane Eximon they'll be rotating in a lot. And that's what I entirely suspect in terms of how they utilize, because the scheme for Patrick Graham, which is going to lead me into the Patrick Graham segment, of course, but the scheme that Patrick Graham deploys is ever changing, right? Some plays will have one outside linebacker, some plays they'll be using a bare front with just 3 interior defenders. Dexter Lawrence and Austin Johnson or Danny Shelton, and of course Leonard Williams. Some other drives, they'll be using a lot of their linebackers, their middle linebackers. They'll have Blake Martinez or Tate Crowder, and Tate Crowder is listed above Carter Coughlin, so that's another interesting take. But they just change everything. The safeties come down into the box. We'll see Xavier McKinney moving around. Jabril Peppers is going to be all over the place. We know, Anthony and I, we've talked about this many times, that Patrick Graham loves to get very, very versatile, very unique with the way he deploys his defensive schemes. And I think that usually you'll see 2 outside linebackers, but it's going to be a heavy rotation, right? They're going to be keeping those guys fresh. They're going to be attacking specific matchups. We'll see. I think the left tackle spot with Bowles is not that bad. I think right tackle might be a little bit more of a question mark for the Denver Broncos, so they might be looking to attack that spot. But overall, Denver actually has a pretty solid offensive line. They have a solid group of receivers. They're going to have to find unique ways to put pressure on them. There's going to be mistakes. Logan Ryan said it yesterday. We're not going to be the 85 Bears coming out of week 1. We're going to have to, overcome our mistakes. There will be mistakes, but you have to just limit them to as much as possible. This defense is capable of being as good as any defense in the league, if not the best. But Anthony, when you're looking at this outside linebacker spot, would you have liked to see Azeez Ojulari ahead of O'Shane, or do you think it doesn't really matter because they're going to be using this rotation, which is what I believe?
I think it's going to be a rotation, and I think that Azeez Ojulari, I said this a long time ago, like early on in the offseason, before training camp even began. Azeez Ojulari is not going to start the season as the starter at the outside linebacker position. I always knew that to be the case, unless he just tore it up throughout the training camp process. What's going to happen is he's going to get eased into the lineup, get used to playing in this really complex defense that Patrick Graham runs, and hopefully by week 4, 5, 6, 7, then he can take over the starting spot. But for now, I think it's good to go with the veteran O'Shane Ximines, who also had a really good summer, who played really well in the preseason, looked like a great player, an improved player coming off of a season-ending injury, which is always really exciting to see. So, yeah, I think O'Shane Ximines as a starter is good for now, but obviously the Giants spent the 50th overall pick on Azeez Ojulari, who was a first-round talent. So long-term, they hope that he takes over that starting position, and ultimately, I do believe that he will. I just think as a rookie, entering this complex defensive scheme, it's going to get the most out of Azeez when he's on the field. That's what this scheme does. It gets the most out of players. So he'll play well when he's out there on the field. But for now, I don't think he's ready to take that full-time starting role in this scheme, and he's going to have to work his way up into that, ramp up into that, and I think pretty soon enough, you will see him take over by season's end. But for now, unless O'Shane Ximines just starts balling out all year long, which I would love to see, right? And then we can just keep rotating these guys in and out. But for now, I think that O'Shane Ximines is going to be serviceable as always. He's going to be a good player, and eventually Azeez will start to pop off on the film. The coaches will see that, and he'll get the starting role by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think odds are we'll probably see a rotation. And speaking of odds, our new sponsor, brand new, BetQL, fantastic platform, guys. If you want to get advantage of your sports book, if you're into betting, you need to download BetQL, the only app you'll need to make smart bets. Their best bet computer model scans over 350,000 unique bets per year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports and gives you the reasoning behind why you should place the bet. And I have to say, I've been using it for a couple of weeks just to test it out. And I think I've won like 7 out of my 10 bets, and I'm positive it's insane. And this is just not because I'm reading an ad right now. It's because I actually believe in this product. I believe in this platform. The model covers everything from spreads, over-unders, and player prop bets. Don't want to use the model and prefer to do the research yourself? BetQL has all the necessary tools for your research needs. There is sharp data so you can see what the pros are backing, where the money is going, line movement so you can jump on betting opportunities in real time, team summaries highlighting previous success against the spread and the over-under. And with football season just around the corner, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to see all of the trends, all the historical data for you to make successful bets, not just, random bets because you like your team, but actually make some money. And this is tremendous. I've been using it for the MLB for a couple of weeks now, and I have to say, I go on this. They grade each single one, every bet out of 5 stars, and their model is tremendous. I get an email every single week saying how positive their bets are from 4 to 5 stars. They're all amazing. And I have to say, it's been just a tremendous experience to actually be a part of something that I believe in and that I trust. And if you really want to go and download this, we'll give you all the discount codes necessary. Head over to the App Store, Google Play Store now to download BetQL. You can also head to try.betql.co/fireside. It'll be on the YouTube graphics and in the description on the YouTube channel. Enter the discount code FIRESIDE at payment checkout for 25% off any of their subscription offerings. And you can find all this information in the description, as I mentioned before. Make sure to check out their BetMGM offer in the description in order to receive a free year of BetQL. So if you go to BetMGM and actually sign up, use our code, you get a free year of this service, and it's literally going to tell you what the best bets are to make. You will win more bets, guaranteed. I don't know what your success rate is now, but it will be better. I've already been using this. I'll give you my best bets of the day weekly to give you, more information and really what I'm looking at to bet on and the success that I've had this week, how much money I've made. So you can actually get an idea of how successful this is. You can also check out their sportsbook offers page if you live in one of the eligible states to claim free offers upon signing up at one of many sportsbooks listed. Don't miss out on the chance to beat your sportsbook this football season, because I guarantee you will beat it. But my friends, let's jump back over to Patrick Graham and how much of a stud Patrick Graham is, right? Defensive coordinator for this New York Football Giants team. And I have to say, I watched the Giants YouTube channel and I watched the documentary they posted about him. And believe it or not, Patrick Graham wanted to be a CIA spy before he wanted to be a football coach. And one of his mentors hit him up and said, hey, come back to football. We want you here. And eventually he ended up with the Patriots, ended up with the Giants, ended up with Green Bay. And I have to say, the guy is an absolute genius. He has a photographic memory. I don't know if anybody knows this, but he has a photographic memory. He recalls plays. He recalls the drive. He recalls where the ball is on the field. Patrick Graham is just an absolute secret weapon for this Giants team. You can have as many great players as possible, but when you have a guy who can put all that great talent together, devise creative schemes and masking coverages and unique blitzing packages, you have the foundation of a great defense, right, Anthony? When you're looking at Patrick Graham, how excited are you to see how this defense takes a step forward in year 2 after we did not expect them to be such a great unit in year 1?
Yeah, I think it's going to take a big step forward. I think this could be and should be a top 10 unit. I think there's even a chance for it to be a top 5 unit, and all of that comes from Patrick Graham. We did an interview with that franchise guy, great YouTuber, 60,000 plus subscribers. He really dove into the Patrick Graham defensive scheme, called Patrick Graham a trailblazer, said that he is setting the new standard for NFL defenses going forward with his new nickel 3-3-5 base defense, right? Usually you talk about a base defense, you're talking about a 3-4 or a 4-3, or a little bit hybrid in between, right? But with the Giants, their base last year really became nickel defense, 3-3-5 odd. And that's a new thing, new trend in the NFL that Patrick Graham is kind of capitalizing on and making the best standard of that 3-3-5 odd defense. The dude is actually a trailblazer. He is a genius. He will one day be a head coach. I just hopefully we can get the most out of him for now and maybe win a Super Bowl with him before he goes on to become a head coach, right? That's the hope, because one day he will be. He is too smart of a man and too smart of a football coach not to become a head coach one day. He is phenomenal. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows how to get the best out of these players. We saw rookies, 6th and 7th round players just performing at such a high level last year. I guarantee we see that again this year. I think that we've just seen so much growth and development from young players since Patrick Graham got here. And I think we're going to see that again this year. Xavier McKinney, keep an eye on him. He's going to have a huge breakout year playing in that 3-3-5 odd defense that uses big nickel, that uses 3 safety sets, sometimes 4 safety sets. It's phenomenal. I love this defensive scheme. Every time I put on the film and I start watching Patrick Graham's defense, I'm in awe. It's so smart. It's so complex. The disguise coverages are genius. The way he uses players and puts them in positions to succeed. Patrick Graham, dude, he is an elite coach, and the Giants are just so lucky to have him. So yeah, anytime we talk about Patrick Graham, I'm excited. My ears perk up. I get all hyped up because I know that when we have Patrick Graham as our defensive coordinator, we will have a good defensive unit this year, and I can't wait to watch it get to work on Sunday.
Absolutely. I mean, how can you not like Patrick Graham, right? The guy literally said, screw you to everyone asking him to be the head coach. He was like, I'm staying right here with the Giants, my buddy Joe Judge. That's the thing. He's like literally coaching with all of his friends, which is like such a cool concept. You know, he's like all the entire Giants coaching staff, they're all like friends from college, all friends from being with the Patriots. And like, that's such a cool thing to like have Joe Judge come in there and just build it all. And he feels like he owes Joe Judge, by the way, which is a big reason he ended up staying with the Giants and not really accepting any of those head coaching gigs or really interviewing seriously about them. He was always going to stay with us, which just shows how much of a loyal dude he is at the end of the day. Speaking of Joe Judge, you know, he's a guy that spoke about Andrew Thomas this week. And, you know, Andrew Thomas is one of those players that we just don't know what we're getting. You know, heading into this season, what is Andrew Thomas really providing us? Is he going to be that lockdown left tackle that we need him to be? The question is, you know, can he stand up against Bradley Chubb? And that's who he anticipates facing off against for the majority of week 1. Bradley Chubb, who is a fantastic pass rusher. And if Andrew Thomas doesn't manage to land his jabs, doesn't manage to square off and keep him out of the backfield, it's going to be a really long day for Daniel Jones. And this is what Joe Judge said about people that were making assessments of Andrew Thomas after that Patriots preseason game. He said, it's funny. Sometimes the assessments on the outside don't really have the entire picture at hand and understanding all the other 10 pieces that go together. So you've got to take that with a grain of salt sometimes when you read certain things. Now, look, everyone can play better. I can coach better. A player can play better. That's why we're here today practicing. If it was a finished product, we just sit on the side and just relax. We're all here to get better today. And Thomas said, you know, he told reporters afterward, he was given some time to rest, and, you know, that practice that he missed and the headlines coming out of the New York Post and whatnot are saying, oh, you know, he's out, you know, he's out of the lineup. He's out of the starting team. It's just ridiculous. Just stop. He said, for me personally, I try not to pay attention to it. 1, then 2, as a unit, we always talk about being confident, have confidence in your play, have confidence in your preparation. That comes through practice. If you're focusing on what happened in the past, you won't be confident for what's approaching you in the future. I think for the most part, Andrew Thomas is exactly the type of player that you want on your team, right? He's a high work guy. He keeps it all behind the scenes. He's very, very confident in the way that he plays. He's a very strong athlete, right? It's not because Andrew Thomas lacks the tangible traits, not because he lacks the skill set necessary to be a great player. I just think he's building his fundamentals back up, right? He's with a new offensive line coach in Rob Sale. Every single coach wants a guy to do something differently, and I think he's still working on squaring off his form, you know, connecting with those jabs and having a better game in week 1. If he can shut down Bradley Chubb, man, we're going to be sitting here next week saying, damn, where did that come from? You know, where did the hell did that come from? Josh Uche has 1 career sack, you know, blew you up, and now you have, you know, Bradley Chubb running circles around you. You know, it's you know, we're going to see how this goes. But Anthony, you know, are you still confident, Andrew Thomas? Or you still feel like he can be that guy? Or are you a little uneasy right now? Because I know everyone kind of has their differing opinions at this point in time.
Of course, I still believe he can be that guy. I loved him coming out of college. I see a lot of things that didn't translate from the college game to the NFL so far, but I also think that the Giants are maybe just trying to work out some things in the preseason, see what works best for him, see what doesn't work for him. And maybe they figured out what doesn't work and they're going to say, okay, let's not do that. Let's do this instead. What did work in week 1 of the preseason, because he looked like a great player in week 1 of the preseason, but week 3, man, he struggled. So yeah, I'm concerned. I'm confused with Andrew Thomas, and I'm hoping that maybe the coaching can just ramp him up and get him ready for the start of the regular season. Of course, if he does have an elite performance in week 1, or even a decent performance in week 1 against Bradley Chubb, I'll feel a lot more confident in him going for the long run of the season. But for now, I'm a little skeptical. I'm a little uneasy. but it's a long season. He's still a young player that's developing. So I do think in the long run, he will be a good player, will be our franchise left tackle. I'm just hoping that he can really make this turnaround quickly and start to get on the right track early on this season so that the season doesn't get off the tracks and get derailed.
Exactly. And, for the most part, this week is going to be interesting. Wednesday we have padded practices. You have practices, Thursday, and then Friday, and of course Saturday. There's really just walkthroughs, preparation, game planning, scripting, what's going to happen in the beginning of this game. We're going to see a lot of scripted plays, scripted drives to start week one. The offense needs to execute, right? We have not seen Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney and Kyle Rudolph and Saquon Barkley on the field yet. They're all expected to play as of now. Joe Judge has really kept it tight-lipped with if they're going to be available. I think he doesn't want to give Denver any additional information for them to game plan around who's going to be playing and whatnot. He wants to hold this until the final second. And I think that's the smart thing to do. Don't give your opponent any advantages. Make them prepare for everybody. Make them prepare way more than they have to for every single player, because at the end of the day, they might miss something because of that. They might miss a key detail. They might miss something where the Giants can take advantage of it. And I think that's really what Joe Judge wants to do, and what he learned from Bill Belichick in New England. There's a lot of different things that you can do to get an advantage over your opponent. But for the most part, I'm so excited, my friends. I think that we are in for a hell of a game. It's going to be a defensive war. It's going to be like Braveheart. Daniel Jones, just don't turn the ball over. We got to win two categories, right? Two categories. We got to win the turnover battle. And we got to win time of possession. When we win those two categories, we did it against Seattle last year and we won the game. We have to win those two categories and your chances of victory skyrocket. So hopefully we can accomplish that, my friends. But make sure to subscribe below on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. As always, we got you guys covered with everything you could possibly need this week, from injury reports to news on our players, to everything, to betting stuff. And we'll make sure you guys have all the information possible to enjoy your week ahead of week one against Denver. Of course, we'll be doing a live stream before the game, and immediately after, we'll have instant reactions. We will be live tweeting, and I'll be posting highlight clips throughout the game, so you'll have everything to possibly enjoy to make week one the best experience to start the 2021 season. We've got you guys covered all year long, of course. So make sure to subscribe below, and we'll catch you guys on the next New York Giants video.